A Margo space train pulled into the terminal at the upper portion of the station. Massive arms reached out and latched onto each car, securing them as the Margo ship detached off the front. An SFP cluster in suits were crawling over the ship, unhooking tethers and lifting the massive pin connecting it to the line of containers. The containers, now free, were rotated around on the arms and into a conveyor tube. Each one was scanned and slotted for transfer to their appropriate terminals. The ship cleared the terminal, and the next space train slid into the empty spot. A car filled with silica moved through the tubes, grabbed by arms, shifting, and continued through the station's freight network to its destination, the SFP Pillbug's fill room. The car emptied its contents into the grav-plated storehouse, sand billowing out. The Pillbugs, as big as tires, sifted through the sand, storing it in sacks under their upper carapace. Their bodies processed it, mixing it with other ores and minerals, turning it into a thick paste in their stomachs. They marched out behind the box spiders, thickening the newly completed struts with a resilient protective layer. One of the pillbugs sifting through the sand ingested a microscopic larvae. It harbored it in its pouches and stomachs. The larvae moved through the spaceborne creature and crept into its central nervous pathways. The pillbug returned to the SFP control nerve on the outer portion of the station to receive new orders, and in so doing allowed the larvae to slip into the Starfish People's station nerves. The larvae slipped through nodes and down pathways, entering into the protected space inside Twain Station. It had grown into a sliver of a worm and slid into the mists of an inner hallway. A squishy ran past it. The larvae was positioned well enough that it was able to latch on with its grasping end. The squishy ran with the herd down hall, carrying the larvae through the mists. The larvae dropped off in a well-lit crossroad. There it crawled through the mist, feeding on a thin layer of algae-like slime missed by the grazer custodians. After several cycles of feeding, the now engorged worm slithered to the ceiling, creating a purple pupae the size of Sam's thumb. There it dangled for several more cycles. Humans jogged underneath it, oblivious. Scribblers hunted rabbit rats, followed by the squishy herds. Then, after a suitable period, the pupae cracked open. 3 flying masses of cells and organs buzzed around in the lights. The 3 creatures copulated and then fell back into the mists of the hallway. There they found suitable spots in cracks and crevices, and laid their eggs, continuing the cycle. A hungry Fuimos was flying through the corridors, on its way to the dandelion fields to feed. It stopped abruptly as its eyes caught something of severe interest: small flying creatures. The Fuimos turned, maneuvering its numerous feather and eye-covered tendrils, appearing like a floating feather boa. It locked onto several of the tiny flying creatures. It lunged. Tiny mouth needles shot out, skewering the flying dots and pulled them into the body to be devoured. The Fuimos flashed colors as it enjoyed its meal. It continued hunting them until the swarm cloud was gone. The Fuimos floated for a moment, saddened at eating all the nice-tasting, buzzing creatures. Then an eye stalk caught eye of another swarm at the next junction. The Fuimos flittered more colors in excitement. Orbit sent a message to the custodians, Air, and the preserver young. Read: possible insectoid infestation. Fuimos already engaging. Need reconnaissance to determine threat level. Swarm locations marked on attached map. Sam stood at the holodesk in his office, looking at a display of Phase 3 of Twain Station. Baoa pointed into the intersection. We could fit in 50 more farms throughout this proposed space. I've got herds willing to move here and work. All I need do is ask, and they will come. Sam looked at the large spherical structure displayed. He then looked at the hologram of Guachuk stretched out in his office. How are we doing on funding? Market seeming stable? Guachuk crawled through his office, the display following him. The market is severely unstable, but in our favor. It is experiencing tremendous growth, and with the addition of planned farms on Kawaru Prime, and Sparrow investing has tripled. I have entertained several great arm families here, and each has offered tremendous resources in trade for clams. Your blockchain currency is taking off through the developed and undeveloped worlds across the rim. 72 worlds currently use it, with it being the predominant currency on 12 of them. Build whatever you wish, Sam. Your current limitation is traffic. Sam looked around the table. Firebottom sat on a bench next to Baoa and Hislips. A hologram of Zamudans floated next to Orbit and Guachuk. Zamudans, we need a traffic control tower built to house a team to direct the flow of ships. Hislips, we need more people trained up for scanning and security. Feel free to hire humans from the Pozar. They are experienced and can help. Oh, and get as many Fuimos as possible. Their eyes are amazing, yes. Yes, this fits here. Sam drew up a hollow rectangle and put it into the edge of the sphere. What you think, Zamudans? Zamudans turned the rectangle, and then copied it for the southern half of the proposed Twain sphere. We will need 2. He stretched them taller. And they will need to be tall in order to have line of sight over the entire station. Zamudans touched several points and drew out comm towers. We will need scanners and comm relays around the entirety of the station for deep space sight and scans. Hislips touched several points, dropping weapon mounts. We need complete line of sight for guns, too. Also, I heard of the Oblivions. We should get a team of those installed, too. Sam looked over the growing structure, kneeling down and peering at it from a lower perspective. He touched an area on the lower hemisphere. We could put in an Oblivion tube here opposite the ship lanes. If we reposition the Infinigan repair shop and construction yard, then both the shipping lanes and Oblivion tube would have access to the shop and yard. Zamudans shifted. That makes sense. But what about the power influx from the Oblivions? How will our current power core plan compensate for the influx of such current? Orbit shifted on the edge of the table. The Oblivions won't be used on an everyday basis. We can have backup battery and capacitors here. He pointed into a still empty portion of the sphere. Also in the factories we will have numerous ores, salts, minerals and such needing melted down. If we incorporate an overcurrent output into the factory and always have materials lined up for smelting, we have a way to usefully discharge whatever current the Oblivions bring in. Sam stood straight. I love it. Everything is knitting together. Finalize the schematics and run it through the Senate. Put my name on it. Orbit nodded and disappeared, as did Zamudans and Guachuk. Baoa patted Sam. This is good. My people are happy. I thank you. My daughters are growing up strong here. Thank you, Sam. Sam smiled back at her. She flinched for a moment, and then spread her mouth open, attempting to reciprocate. Sam let his smile go. You are welcome, Baoa. The Grazers have helped grow Twain to what it has become. Your people are vital here. I thank you. Baoa tinged. Her skin rippled. We will continue to do so. She left with Hislips out of the office. Hislips was speaking through his comms, organizing a hiring event. Sam sat at his desk having an Irish coffee when Smell entered. The white-horned serpent slithered across the room and coiled up on the couch. It stared with one open eye at Sam and spoke through the comm without moving. Thank you for having me in your space here. I've been wanting to speak with you. Go on. Tell me what you have been thinking about, Sam said. Your fellow humans. We figured more would arrive eventually, once contact was established. The totems, even with all their faculty, underestimated your kind. Our probe saw what one of your ships is capable of, and it is enough to change our minds. Your species appears to have significant martial prowess, more so than any uplifted. I have been tasked with asking you for a history of your world. We wish to know what has happened to make you so unique. Sam shifted in his seat, looking at the Churi. He waited a long moment before replying. I will have to talk to my fellows, and we will give you what we can. I do not want any trouble with you or any of the other council species. So far, it is only my own hands that have been injured by your people, and maybe my mind. You have assisted us, sold us a planet, and traded resources with us. However, I want information in return. Arlong, Smell said. Yes, I want to know what it is and why I keep having nightmares. Also, what's with the hagfish? They're weird, and the guardian thing they made, why do that? Smell extended, its head now uncoiled from its body. The hagfish people are a species that grew up from a destroyed world. They thrive in chaotic places. They were drawn here because of your very nature. I am a Churi of science and dwell as completely as I can in what I can sense. But they do not. They are creatures of faith, and their faith led them to you. Sam took another drink. And their faith is in this Aralang creature? Yes, Smell replied. Is it real? Smell slithered back down into its coils. I do not know. None have ever seen it. It is a being of myth, inferred only from ruins from long-dead species. Sam nodded. Then I will trade your info on those myths and locations of those ruins, for whatever approved data concerning my species and worlds. Agreed? The serpent slowly blinked its eye. Agreed. Spitzlittle sat on her hovering chair in the grand auditorium of the Gree of Cathu. She flicked a file over to the display in front of its large red eye. The Gree vibrated its branches. It is too small what you plan. I cannot give a seed for such a small ship. I would be cursing my young to a confinement. Spitzlittle looked over the design. No, it's not a confinement. You would have mobility that your kind does not normally have. You could actually touch and do. You wouldn't have to rely on the numerous species you have. No, the Gree shouted through the room, echoing. Gree love our creatures. We have our help because we love them. They love us. To not have helper species is a lonely existence, a sad existence. I will not damn a fellow to a lonely ship like what you propose. Spitzlittle thought for a moment, staring at the Omega Deus. She expanded it more, touched up numerous points, and then resubmitted the file over to the Gree. What about that? The Gree of Cathu looked at the modifications. The quarters are small. Not even Kawaru could live in such confines. No, the Kawaru are too large, you are right, but the Scribblers could inhabit that ship easily. They are a proven combat species. I think your two species would line up well on such an endeavor, she said. The Gree thought for a moment, sending out data and emotion to its fellow cities. Emotion and thought returned back. Faligi is willing to try. It owes thanks to the Clouder, and will sacrifice one of its seeds to your endeavor. Spitzlittle fidgeted in her floating chair. It is not a sacrifice. I think the child will actually enjoy it. We will see, said the Gree. Asterion watched as Micah tried the lemon square. This is actually pretty good. She took another bite while looking at him. Asterion smiled, drinking some lemonade. It is a human delicacy, correct? She nodded. One of many, but it is one of my favorites. He looked over the empty dishes. Did you enjoy your fish? She leaned back. Yes, I was impressed. Cooked well, seasoned well too. The ocean growers are raising them in their sea. The preserver said they are called salmon. She cleaned her teeth with her tongue. He's right. They would come up the river near my hometown, descended from clones brought from Earth. We'd have them smoked and dried for snacks. She scooted closer to Asterion. You like learning Earth stuff, don't you? Curious, huh? He nodded. I want to know more about the world that dreamt me. It helps me feel tethered to something, rather than just this can floating here in the dark. He paused. I like to feel like I'm connected to somewhere real, and not just manufactured. She flicked some credits over to the server's datapad. Asterion looked at her with scorn. I was going to treat you, she smiled. I've had a lucky day today. Let me cover it. You showed me your zoo. He shook his head with a smile. It is the Preserver's zoo. I just help. She looked at him intently. So, you got your own place somewhere on this station? He nodded with a laugh. You're wanting another tour? She stood up and took his hand. I think I do. Kifofe ran through the mists with 3 fellow hunters. He knelt down pointing at a nearby vent, signaling with his hands. The 4 all looked up at the cloud of circle flies circling the corridor light. They saw the telltale signs of the predator. Kifofe motioned. The other 3 ran across the hallway to his side. Kifofe ducked under the vent flap and entered the ducts. His tiny footsteps echoed softly, followed by his 3 comrades. Sasisur drew his blade, walking softly to peek around the corner. Kifo, the Miss Mishi has been this way, but her tracks are old. Kifofe knelt and touched the paw prints in the dust. He ducked as several of the circle flies darted down the duct. He followed them with his eyes. It follows its prey. I say we follow the flies. Sasisor and the other 2 scribblers bobbed agreement. Kifofe started down the duct with the other knights close behind. Their steps were quiet, the quarry was close, and they did not want to alert it. Kifofe's foot stuck still for a moment. He raised his hand up for all to stop. The four knights looked above them as the duct extended vertically over them. Kifofe had tripped one of the demon's lines. High above them they could see it waiting, watching, hoping for another movement to signal it to pounce. Sasisor slowly approached Kifofe while raising his shield and sword. The other two knights followed suit, surrounding their brother. Sasisor gave the nod of being ready. Kifofe steadied himself and stomped the sticky thread several times. The eight-legged fiend above darted down its web toward them. The four knights attacked as one, cutting legs, slashing its abdomen, and then Kifofe raised up his blade. In one clean stroke, Kifofe beheaded the predator. The clan will be thankful. This beast has taken several of our brothers, Sasisor said as he stood looking at the body of the spider. Such a wicked thing. Kifofe looked up at the web. Tiny hatchlings dotted the threads. Knights, our work isn't done. Sam led the jogging team down the hall leading to the outer ring. Frith kept up beside him on his modified prosthetics. 17 others followed behind. Sam was content, keeping a steady pace, listening to his newly modified playlist. He didn't notice the small, fiery explosions in the vent near his feet as he passed by. Jahad-Din served in 22 combat deployments. He had fought on 7 different worlds and had been shot 3 times. He had gained full disability, retiring to Gaia to become a martial arts instructor. When the Posar called for aid, he came willingly. Now Jahad-Din sat in a small loan administrator's office. He sat in his biosuit as the web creature slung herself through the acidic air to her seat. Falkwick stretched herself over the metal wires across from Jahad-Din. She pulsated, making rasping noises that his helmet translated. "So, you have come to the Bank of Twain for a loan?" She pulled up the forms on her display. "What is a dojo exactly?" "Well, ma'am, it is a place for me and my students to hone our bodies and minds." "And what is wrong with your body and mind? Why a dojo, and not got to the air facilities?" Jahad-Din chuckled. No, I'm not a practitioner of medicine. I merely want to be strong." She looked over him with her numerous eyes spread throughout her stretched body. "You are human. You are one of the stronger species on the station. I do not see the need." Jahad-Din thought for a moment, then spoke slowly and deliberately. "Humans are not efficient. You have seen this, correct?" The comm translated her gyration as a confirmation. "Well, with training, humans can hone their motions to be more powerful and efficient. The dojo I wish to set up here will be a place where myself and others can work on this." Falkwick adjusted herself. "I can see the benefit in that, and this is something many humans do. Enough that it would generate enough profit to pay back this loan and feed me, yes. The exchange is predicting the humans would scatter themselves. Already some have splintered between Twain and Kawaru. You think enough will stay here to support this business in the long run?" Jahad-Din nodded. "I think many will stay, but more on the point is that I think other species could benefit from the training I can offer. Not many other species operate with such wasted energy as humans, maybe the Infinigan. They move a lot. Yes, the Infinigan, and they reproduce so very quickly. All right, I will approve this." Jahad-Din stood up and bowed to her. "Thank you, Falkwick. I appreciate this." Jahad-Din walked into the empty shop off the trade district on the outer ring. He tapped his food on the metal floor, listening to the sound of the space. He then started into his first string of kata. Sam showered and got dressed. He was tired and hungry after the jog, but it needed done. He squeezed the pudge on his hips. Sam left back out from his suite and went down to the new hot dam. He stepped through the swinging doors and saw the candidate sitting at a table on the other side of the bar. He walked over and looked at the young woman. "Hello, are you Callie?" The woman brushed aside her hair and looked up at him. "I am." She stood up and shook his hand, pointing at the open chair with the other. Sam sat across from her. "I found your file when looking through the Posar's crew list. I think I am in need of your skill set." She leaned back. "Oh? You need telemetrics, officer?" Sam shook his head. No. We have numerous fuimos and more every day, it seems. No, I was actually referring to your undergrad studies. Your summer abroad specifically. She sat her chair back down and hissed through her lips. You want me because of my 2 years studying ancient American music? Yes and no. Sam put his finger on the table. What I found interesting was the numerous recordings you pulled during your archaeological digs. Your data recovery and reconstruction was quite good. Even my AI went over it and was impressed. She looked into her glass. Yep, that helped get me a spot in my telemetrics career. What kind of job you got lined up? I have a file. He leaned in. There are a series of worlds in it. Worlds rumored to hold ruins of lost civilizations. I want to send teams to them to perform an archaeological assessment. Callie straightened up. You want me to go to some random worlds and report to you on who lived there? Am I hearing that right? Sam nodded. She sipped the last of her whiskey down. It dangerous? Sam shrugged. Could be. A security detail and military attachment will be part of the mission crew. And who else will I have working with me? I have requested more air for the station, 2 of which I have slotted for this mission. I have called in my friend the curator to assist you directly, and I have 10 preservers who need to spread their wings. She raised her eyebrows. Those 3-legged crab things have wings? Sam shook his head. No, just using the old expression. Callie nodded. I want adequate pay and an apartment. Done and done. Sam flicked a file over to her arm display. Callie looked over the job offer. She touched her fingerprint to it so as to sign. She looked up at Sam. Sounds like a fun adventure. I look forward to it. Sam stood up, as did she. They shook hands with a smile. Shineless sat on the truck bed watching Dam as he worked the hives. God damn it, Dam, I'm going! She shouted. Dam, focused and looking through the mesh bee-suit mask, calmly answered. Caroline is still too small to travel. I don't want her catching some virus. There are humans there. Humans have diseases. They can't help but spread shit. She stood up, cradling the baby in her arms. We're human. I want to meet other humans. Dam slowly turned his head toward her. Careful. Don't go pissing them off. The cover is open. You could get her stung. She looked at the distance between him and her. You're way over there with those bugs. I'm fine here, and I'm going with Curator back to Twain. Dam looked back into the hive, the bees moving across the frames. He touched the comm in his ear. Speak through the comms. I want you to calm down some. She touched her ear and went back into the truck with baby Caroline. My parents deserve to see her. Shineless, I love you. I'm not doing this to piss you off, I just want to keep her safe. The air gave her vaccines. She's protected. I don't know what you are scared of. He sighed. I'm scared because I won't be with you. I have to stay here to monitor Erebus. He is still young. She sighed back at him. Curator is going to be with me. Her and I get along. She is strong too. Dam put the top cover back on the hive. That is a long list of pros, and my one con is selfish. All right, go, but I want a daily report. She squealed into the mic. Yes, yes, yes. Caroline woke up and started crying. Shineless lifted up her shirt and let the baby girl latch on. Mama Pouch Cheek is going to be so excited to see you, little girl. Dam set the crate of honey frames in the back of the truck. It'll be good for you to visit. You're right. They need to see her. He began getting out of his suit. Shineless looked out the window. The greenhouse roof stretched a mile overhead, the sparrow sun filtering through the sheets of glass. I can't wait to tell them about this place. She lowered her gaze to the endless field of dandelions growing.